Okay, so this is going to demonstrate how to add resource gathering to a game. So we're just going to start with a single object and build out from there. So game object 3D cube. Let's just rename it to gem. We'll increase the scale just so it's larger on the screen. 2 by 2. And now we need to create a material to change its appearance. So let's go to material and let's call it emerald. And we're not going to do any textures or anything. It's just going to be a color. So just click on the color picker there. Choose a green. Put the alpha fairly low. That way it's translucent. And for the rendering mode, choose transparent. Drag and drop it. And now let's just make sure that's lined up with the camera. So we'll put this at 0, 0. I'll bring that down to, say, 1. Okay. Now let's make the cutting tool. So game object, particle system, and I'm just going to go through this quickly. It's not meant to be a particle system tutorial, so you certainly can stop the video to double check the fields that I'm changing, but ultimately I'm turning the cone into a cylinder, shrinking its diameter, decreasing particle size, decreasing lifetime, decreasing speed, which has the net effect of making it shorter because it's not traveling out as far and it doesn't last as long. Going to increase max particles. That way we can increase emissions. Because if the amount of emissions on the screen exceeds the max particles, you'll get a dead space. And let's make the size a little bit bigger. And you'll typically notice that as you change start size, you'll probably also change rate. And see that little dead space? That's because we exceeded the max particles. Zoom in, we'll just shrink the diameter so they're close together. I think that's good enough for our particle beam. So we're going to rotate that, and we'll rotate that let's see, 0, 0, 0. There we go. Now we just need to line this up. So if this is also at x0, y0, it should be cutting through it. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell. So that looks like it's dead center. Again, the way it appears in the director's view here is a little bit wonky, but yeah, that's definitely cutting through it. Now we just need to pull this back. And we're going to give it, the particle system, a collider box. So physics, box collider, and actually that looks good. It's a little bit generous, but I'm not worried about precision for this. We just want to demonstrate the basics. We'll set that to a trigger. We'll go back to our gem. We set its box collider, which it has by default, to a trigger. Give this a quick run. Okay. Now we're going to set the particle system to pre-warm. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have this move forward. And then when the collision occurs, we should start collecting emeralds. So a couple things we have to do. So right click, create C#, and we'll call this harvest. We'll click on our particle system. We'll put harvest onto it. We'll go ahead and open harvest. So we're looking for a collision. So void on trigger stay collider other. So on trigger stay occurs every single frame there's a collision, as opposed to on trigger enter, which is the single frame in which the collision begins. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable. Public static int gem units, and it'll start at 0. And down here, we'll say gem units plus equals 1. So for every frame that a collision is occurring, gem units is increased by 1. Now, long term, you're probably gonna want to have this not be done based on frame rate. You're gonna want it to be based on time. But again, we just want to get the beginning. Game development is often iterative in nature. You get a proof of concept, you get basic functionality, and then you tweak it for game balance. Okay, we don't want it per frame, we want it per second, whatever. So it's okay that we're doing it this way to begin with. So you start off with 0 gem units. So long as the object this script is attached to, the particle beam, is colliding with another object, then gem units is increased. Now that brings up another issue. This is just saying collider with any other object. It's not confirming the name of what you're colliding with. If you're, say, hitting a mushroom, you don't want to give you gem units. So again, iterative in nature, we just want to make sure the basic collision and collection is working. So when the particle beam, or should I say, so long as the particle beam is touching this, you'll have an increase in emeralds. So let's confirm that happens by doing debug.log and displaying gem units. I think I might have said emerald units a moment ago. All right, so gem units will be displayed there as the collision is occurring. And the reason why I'm having it happen within the collision is I want to confirm that the collision is working. If I put the debug in the update, I'll see 0, 0, 0, 0. I won't know when the collision has actually occurred until the number changes. This way, by putting it here, I'll know right away when it's working. I won't have to sort through a sea of zeros. So now we need to move the beam towards the cube. So we're going to use the same script, but we need to add a rigid body. So physics, rigid body, get rid of gravity, and we're just going to have this move forward. So void start, get component, rigid body, velocity equals new vector 3 because you can move in 3 directions. It's not moving X, it's not moving Y, it's moving away from the camera, so it's moving Z. So let's put that as positive 2. And we'll save. So if I haven't forgotten anything, that should do it. So at the start, the beam begins to move forward, and then when the collision begins, we should see an increase in that. And there we go. Now, clearly, you also want the beam to stop at a certain point as well. So what you can do is when this occurs, okay, when the collision occurs, you can then stop the motion. Again, think iterative, that you're not gonna go from 0 to 100. You're going to do this one step at a time and make it better and better and better. And as you can see, it's not moving forward anymore, and the collision is still working. All right, so got a lot done in our first video. We created an object, we created our cutting beam, we can detect a collision, and we can increase a resource based on that collision. The next video, we'll look at adding multiple types of objects, and we'll add in the code to determine which object is being collided with. And we'll also look at maybe doing an overheat mechanism and maybe a way of speeding up or slowing down the rate of collection. Because as we said, right now, every frame this gets increased, maybe certain objects have to be, you have to work longer to get any units from them. Okay, so that should do it for this one.